In the old days, companies hired public relations people who had experience in their industry. So if you were in tech or entertainment or gaming or automotive, you hired a PR person who had experience in your trade and relationships with reporters and journalists covering your industry. Boy, have things changed. Vertical industry experience is no longer the most important thing to clients. We've been living through a decade of massive growth. I'm not just talking about companies like Apple, Amazon, Google, and Facebook. I'm talking about an e-commerce pet supply company you may never have heard of called Chewy, which did $3.5 billion in revenue. Or a system integrator called Carahsoft, which helps federal government agencies implement software and did $5.3 billion in revenue. Or Uber, a company less than 10 years old that did $11.3 billion in revenue and is now one of the biggest companies in the world. In the old days, companies like these would have wanted a PR person that had experience in their industry. But when you're at a company that's growing this quickly, right? A company that's doubling, tripling, quadrupling in headcount every 6 months, being able to manage the reputation of a fast-growing company becomes a more valuable skill than vertical industry expertise. Companies begin as startups. Next, they inevitably go through a phase where they pivot in search of a product market fit. I call this the change-up phase. If they make it through that phase, they become a scale-up, and this is where most of the growth happens. And if they get to a point where there's not that much headroom left in the market for them, they become a grown-up. Growth PR suggests a logical sequence of media channels tied to each growth stage in an organization's corporate evolution. So at the startup phase, they're focused on owned media, on building their own identity online. In the pivot stage, they're focused on building connections, on leveraging shared media or social media to build relationships online. Next, in the scale-up phase, they're focused on earned media, and this is third-party endorsements, reviews, and testimonials. And if they make it through to the point where there's not that much headroom left and they've grown as large as they'd like to grow or as large as they're designed to grow, then they look at advertising. Now, this is based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And you don't necessarily need to fulfill all your needs at one stage before you implement needs at the next stage. But this logical sequence is what growth PR is all about. The problem is, too many startups and change-ups go out and hire PR before they're ready. How can you go after earned media when you haven't developed your voice through owned media and built a community through shared media? If you haven't developed your voice through owned media, you don't have a message. And if you haven't built a community through shared media, no one knows who you are, so you have no credibility. Rather than outsource to a PR firm to guide you through the owned and shared media stages, I've developed a unique program called Inside Out PR, which affords you the strategic guidance you need to build a go-to-media strategy and develop a message map without outsourcing your voice. But Inside Out PR isn't for everyone. In the next video, we'll see whether or not it's right for you.